They're the people charged with keeping us safe. But what happens when the police come under attack? Every year, there are around 30,000 assaults on British cops. That's one every 18 minutes. As deadly weapons, such as guns and knives, become more common, police officers are in the line of fire.
Put your knife down. Put the knife down.
And more incidents are being caught on camera.
If you make any threats, I will tase you. Turn around. Turn around.
Tonight, the officers putting themselves in harm's way.
When I first saw that gun, I just thought I was going to die, that was it.
Plus, cops with years of experience reveal how police protect themselves using body cams,
Get on the floor!
tasers, and when all else fails, the emergency button on their radio to call in what's known as a code zero.
It can be like a movie scene when you press your emergency button and you see blue lights coming from every direction out of nowhere to help you.
Get down now! Get out of the car!
In Britain, around 145,000 police officers are charged with keeping our streets safe.
Do not move! OK, he's on the floor now, no problems. Put down the knife.
When the public are in danger, they often put themselves in the way.
Put it down! Put down the knife! Put it down!
When they make an arrest, they sometimes risk coming under attack. In North Wales, 2 drug dealers are seen here launching a violent attack on an officer. Footage from the dashcam in his police car shows him wrestle one of them to the ground before calling for backup. Officers' radios are equipped with an emergency button. When pressed, it overrides the police radio system so that nearby colleagues can hear the officer shout, "Code Zero," or that they need urgent assistance. Backup then rushes to the scene.
It can be like a movie scene when you press your emergency button and you see blue lights coming from every direction out of nowhere to help you.
Nicola Thorne spent 10 years working in the Metropolitan Police.
If you're having dinner, if you're having a coffee break, you hear that emergency button, everything you're doing gets dropped and you leg it to wherever you need to be.
It's estimated a Code Zero is activated once every 6 minutes by police and the other emergency services. In Gateshead, Constables Michael Otterson and Sarah Curry used their emergency button to call for backup when a man pointed a gun at them. They'd received a report he'd gone to a local pub, intending to attack some drug dealers he'd fallen out with.
We got the call, asked us to head down to the area. I had absolutely no idea that it would end up the way it did.
We were given the command via the radio to just do a quick stop search of him. He was stood in the doorway looking at us with one hand behind his back. I asked him to take his hand out and unfortunately he produced a handgun.
When I first saw that gun, I just thought I was going to die, that was it. A sinking feeling like, oh, God, this is the moment I die.
But despite the danger, they reacted quickly.
We ran him into the back wall of the doorway of the pub, at which point he fired the gun above his head into the ceiling. And I kept a hold of his arm, just thinking the whole time, if I let go of this arm, he's going to shoot me.
We were struggling. I knew we needed help. There was no way we could have kept that fight for much longer.
Fearing for their lives, PC Otterson hit the emergency button on his radio to activate a code 0. As nearby officers responded by rushing to the scene, a member of the public stepped in to help. The first police officer to respond was Sergeant Elliot Richardson, who was already patrolling the back of the pub in case the suspect tried to escape.
I ran to where they were, and that's when I could see the gun in his hand. I could see Michael have hold of it, and I could see them struggling with him against the wall. You've got to control that firearm before anything else happens, and you do that whichever way you can.
The gun dropped to the floor, but the suspect was still resisting arrest. Sergeant Richardson needed to detain him.
You're fighting for your life, there's no rules. He's getting hit, and he's getting hit hard. It was having little to no effect on him. And that's when I had to get the baton and literally just push it into his throat and just hold him against the wall. It gave us enough time to get him just pulled down to the ground and just get on top of him. It was just get those handcuffs on him whichever way you can. Get him his hands secured, because we still don't know what he was carrying.
Once the suspect was safely in handcuffs, the team searched him for weapons. What they found was horrifying.
He had a crossbow, he had 2 handguns, he had a couple of nail bombs, he had 2 petrol bombs in his carrier bag.
The suspect was arrested, but was unfit to stand trial due to his mental health and was given an indefinite hospital order.
If we hadn't turned up that day, undoubtedly there would have been at least 1, if not more, murders in Gateshead that day.
Knives and guns have become a more common sight on our streets. Every year, more than 1 in 3 police officers are assaulted with a weapon. This footage shows Northamptonshire police responding to reports of an armed man in a flat.
The male is armed with a hatchet and what appears to be a handgun of some kind. Let's just back off now.
Believing he was prepared to use his weapons, officers had to withdraw and call for emergency backup.
The male is outside the property. He's raising the weapon at me.
The man followed them outside and pointed his gun.
What are you arguing there for? Put you in police. You know, you ain't safe, put there.
When backup arrived, the suspect was arrested. But officers aren't always able to back away to a safe distance.
Keep nice and calm for me. Keep nice and calm.
In Gwent, police were called to reports of a man armed with 2 large kitchen knives.
Okay, I want you to put the knives down for me.
He refused to hand himself in, so officers had only one option to disarm him.
Don't put us down with knife, I can't get it.
A 1200-volt taser.
Right, now. Taser, taser! Get down! Get down!
Incredibly, he was still able to lash out at the policeman trying to arrest him.
Right, hold up!
The man was later sentenced to 4 years in prison for attempting to cause grievous bodily harm. The officer escaped without being badly hurt. Tasers were first used in Britain in 2003, and since then have been rolled out across the country. They work by firing 2 electronic barbs into the suspect before delivering their charge, which completely incapacitates them for a few vital seconds. Leroy Logan has 30 years' experience of inner-city policing and is used to dealing with violent offenders.
The best place to fire a taser is the largest part of the body, which is the torso. There's a lot of nerve endings there, so you'll get the maximum impact.
Put it down!
Across England and Wales, tasers are aimed at suspects around 40 times a day. But they're not always fired. Chris Hobbs has over 30 years' experience as a senior officer in the Metropolitan Police.
Very often, just the mere production of the taser, that is enough for that person to say, right, that's enough, I'm going to comply with whatever you want me to do.
This body cam footage shows the moment a murderer was apprehended by a taser-carrying officer, just moments after killing his victim.
Stand still! If you make any threats, I will tase you! Turn around! Turn around! Put your arms to the rear. Swanson, cuff him. Mate, if you make any threats to myself or colleagues, I will taser you.
Coming up, what happened when cops tried to arrest Wales' most wanted man?
He then started shouting, "I've got a gun, I'm going to shoot you."
And the officer who was run over by a man on the run.
Get out of the car!
As British police come under attack, body-worn cameras are now standard equipment for many frontline officers. In Kent, police were called to reports of a disturbance
Put the knife down.
where they encounter a knife-wielding man.
You got the knives? I ain't going to come in with the knives, am I? Do you want a little bit of snack?
After launching a dumbbell, he then took aim with a knife, narrowly missing the officer. The body cam footage helped secure a 5-year jail sentence.
Body cam is a really, really good tool to assist police. In a lot of situations, it would often be your word against somebody else's, particularly if you're patrolling on your own.
In North Wales, body cam footage captured the moment officers attempted to arrest a man who threatened to shoot one of them. Constables David Hall and Rhys Rushby were responding to a report of a vehicle involved in a robbery.
I remember saying to Rhys, "So I'll go and look for that." And Rhys, bless him, said, "OK, then I'll come with you, because I know what you're like, you'll get yourself into trouble."
What started as a routine call-out quickly escalated. This CCTV footage shows PC Rushby approaching the vehicle and its driver.
We've seen the vehicle on the forecourt, the registration plate matched up. So we've pulled in and sort of driven in nose to nose with this car.
While PC Rushby talked to the driver, on the passenger side, Constable Hall spotted someone hiding under a sleeping bag on the back seat.
And I just remember, as I was looking through the back window, I could just see just the outline of a set of eyes in the back of the car. So I banged on the windows come down, and I immediately recognised it was Jordan Davidson. He was the most wanted person at the time within North Wales.
Jordan Davidson was wanted for the brutal murder of a 67-year-old man and had been on the run for 5 days. An alert had been sent out to warn officers he could be armed and dangerous.
We'd been told not to approach him under any circumstance. Don't approach him, call for firearms.
But by now, it was too late. Face to face with Wales' most wanted man, they had little option but to attempt an arrest. Another officer arrived and captured the arrest on their body camera.
No, I remember him producing this claw hammer, and I remember turning away, and it just hit me there on the back of the neck.
You could have quite easily hit him in the head. So I've used my radio, we've got an emergency button, so I called a code 0.
2958.
As they waited for armed backup, the officers desperately grappled with the man in the back of the car.
He started shouting, "I've got a gun, I'm going to shoot you." And that was the realisation that, well, there's no point in running, because if he has got a gun, he'll pick us off anyway, so we may as well stay and fight.
PC Hall fired his taser at the suspect, but his first attempt had little effect, so he had to reload.
I discharged the taser again. That's had an effect. He's been shouting, all right, I've had enough, I've had enough." I think Rhys has managed to get a handcuff on.
With Davidson finally under arrest, PC Hall realised how close he'd come to being seriously injured or killed.
Are you okay? Yeah.
When he's produced that claw hammer, made my whole life flash before me, where you see all your kids and your better half and your parents and where you've been. Yeah.
Davidson pleaded guilty to a string of serious offences, including murder, GBH, and 2 robberies. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 30 years.
We were incredibly lucky. I think if it was anything other than luck, we probably would have been seriously injured or dead.
What are you doing?
This body cam footage shows the moment an officer was called to a burglary near Birmingham and was confronted by a gunman.
Oscar 911, they're in the address, they've got a gun. Okay, cheers.
When he made a run for it, she jumped into a taxi to pursue him.
They've abandoned the car and they've run from it.
2 hours later, he was arrested after being spotted by armed officers.
Get on the ground now! Get on the ground now! Get on the ground! On your belly now! On your belly now! Get on your belly! On your belly now!
He was jailed for more than 2 years for brandishing an imitation firearm. High-speed car chases aren't just a staple of Hollywood movies. They're also one of the dangers frontline officers face as part of their job. In Birmingham, the suspect in this car is on the run after firing a gun into a crowded pub.
Their vehicle making off, failing to stop.
Driving at speeds of 80 miles an hour through a 30-mile-per-hour zone,
We're currently 80 miles an hour, California way.
he eventually crashes into a no-entry sign.
Go, mate. Oh, please! Hands in the air! Hands in the air! Hands in the air!
Armed officers recover his gun. He was later jailed for 8 years for firearms offences, with another 12 months for dangerous driving. When a suspect is behind the wheel and desperate to escape, they can be dangerous and unpredictable.
Jumping on the brakes again, putting in reverse one more time.
Sometimes they use their vehicle to ram police.
Further contact made.
Sergeant Chris Schultz was fortunate to escape alive after a high-speed pursuit in Surrey ended with a driver running him over. 4 police cars initially gave chase when they spotted this suspected stolen vehicle. Sergeant Schultz was driving the car in front.
We ended up engaging in a full pursuit with a vehicle. Twice it's tried to ram me off the road. I've hit the crash barrier once, and then I've felt that it was proportionate to make contact with it and spin it round and force it into the barrier.
The vehicle spun.
The other units around it have surrounded the car, blocked it in against the crash barrier. And as I've got out of my car, I've thought, right, my priority now sits with the driver because they're the person that presents the greatest risk to us.
With the teenage driver still inside the car and refusing to surrender, Sergeant Schultz pulled out his taser.
I knew the taser was never going to go through the glass, but quite often having a laser and a taser pointed at you can be quite intimidating.
But the driver was determined not to be arrested. He hit the accelerator and ploughed straight into Sergeant Schultz.
When the car lurched towards me, it just happened so quickly. I, to this day, don't understand why they did what they did.
The driver had rammed him against the central reservation. His colleague, PC Sean Begley, was horrified by what he saw.
I've worked with him on this department in traffic for 4 or 5 years, and it was quite harrowing to see someone that I know so well be driven at in such a dangerous manner. Chris could have been killed as a result.
Luckily, Sergeant Schultz landed on his feet and was straight back into action, as his body cam footage shows.
Key eyes where I can see him now! Key eyes where I can see him! Get go now!
The 19-year-old driver was arrested. He was charged with actual bodily harm and sentenced to 23 months in prison. Sergeant Schultz escaped with cuts and bruises.
Ultimately, I was very lucky that I didn't get seriously injured or killed. I think the key for me is that we are all people and we're kind of soft and squidgy underneath it all. We've got loved ones to go home to see, and so no one should have to come to work and expect to get assaulted.
High-speed police chases are inherently risky. Occasionally, they can result in serious injury or death. Police response teams have to constantly weigh up the risks of continuing a pursuit.
Thanks, Wayne. It is low risk at the moment. There is no other vehicles on the road.
Police pursuits really are very, very strictly controlled. They have to constantly assess the situation during the pursuit.
It's took the opposite side of the carriageway. I'm going to have to abandon this.
Control room or the driver can call off a pursuit at any time if it's considered too dangerous.
When pursuit cars need emergency backup, the control room has the option of calling in a police helicopter. Armed with the latest technology, they direct units on the ground.
Yeah, contact, tactical contact.
A police helicopter is fitted with millions of pounds worth of equipment. They've got high-definition cameras, they have infrared cameras. That eye in the sky is worth its weight in gold.
Flying at up to 155 miles an hour, they're almost impossible to outrun.
Struggling to get any traction. He's off-road.
The odds are, once that helicopter is on your tail, has got you in its sights, you will be arrested. And if you are aware the helicopter is above you, you may as well just stop the car and surrender.
Have we got him? Yes.
Policing has changed a lot over the decades. In the 1950s, the friendly Bobby on the beat was the backbone of the British police. But by the 1970s, officers were mostly responding to rising crime in their squad cars. The early 1980s saw riots spread across Britain's cities.
Nobody quite knows why the rioting started, but when it did, about half a dozen policemen were forced by a barrage of bricks and bottles into this cafe here.
With pitched battles between protesters and police, officers increasingly donned riot gear to protect themselves. The 1990s saw a growing threat from armed criminals.
Don't move. You don't know what they could be carrying, from knives to guns. They're all lethal weapons in their own way.
The police response was to replace the trusty truncheon with extendable batons. Today, violent crime is on the up again, and every year, 1 in 5 police officers need medical attention after an attack. In Norfolk, this officer was on patrol when he responded to reports of a fight outside a pub. When he intervened, he was the victim of a vicious attack. He suffered bruising and a swollen jaw and was taken to hospital for scans.
Steady.
In Nottingham, officers were called to reports of an intruder.
I'll take you, we'll both go out together. Come on.
They tried to persuade him to get into a waiting police car, but he suddenly became aggressive.
All right, now, Lee, let me go back. Lee, come out. Oh! Oh! No! Oh! Oh! Yeah!
He hits the officer with a champagne bottle. She was left with multiple injuries, including a fractured skull. The suspect was sentenced to 2 years and 8 months for GBH. For cops, putting themselves in harm's way to protect the public is all part of the job. Police Community Support Officer Will Todd was on duty in rural Wiltshire when the tranquility of village life was shattered by a knife-wielding robber.
He had gone round in front of the counter and was brandishing the knife at the shopkeeper. Then he jumped over the front counter. The knife was a big knife and he was very agitated and he just seemed to be out of control. I was aware that there were a number of other people in the shop and my first concern was really to make sure that nobody got hurt.
Police Community Support Officers only carry basic equipment, so Officer Todd improvised a way of protecting himself.
So I picked up a basket and walked backwards and more or less sort of fend him backwards, and then I managed to get to the shop door knowing that actually all the other members of the public were out of the shop at that stage.
Officer Todd's quick thinking had given the shop staff time to get out, but to make an arrest he needed police backup, so he called in a code 0.
I didn't really think about what to do. I remember just pressing my red button, an emergency button on the radio, and I said, "Male's got a knife."
He managed to fend the man off until backup arrived a few minutes later.
2 police officers turned up. One, fortunately, was carrying a taser, and he managed to taser him and take the knife off of him. In 10 years as working as a PCSO, I don't think I'd ever pressed my red button, my emergency button, so actually to know that it works, it was quite reassuring.
The man was sentenced to 3 years for attempted robbery. Officer Todd is glad the arrival of backup means no one was hurt.
Wiltshire's a rural county, and there's every likelihood that I could have been at a situation like that, and it had been maybe 20, 30 minutes before anybody had got to me. So in many ways, I was very lucky that night.
When police come under attack, like this traffic cop who reportedly pulled over a motorcyclist for not having an MOT, members of the public sometimes volunteer to step in until backup arrives. These officers are after a suspected thief, but he's too quick for them. The cyclist gives chase and manages to catch up with the suspect.
Mate, police are on their way, just wait here.
The suspect gets away.
What am I supposed to do, man?
But the cyclist collects some evidence.
He took off over there and got his jacket in there.
Not everyone is so helpful, though.
If you see police officers that are clearly in need of help, then I think it's everybody's duty to actually help police officers rather than stand there laughing and filming them on their phones.
And if you're unwilling to help an officer in distress, you're actually breaking the law.
If you don't help a police officer and they're in trouble and they're asking you for help, it's an offence to not help a police officer.
In York, Constable Richard Farrar had to rely on a passing member of the public for help after a CCTV operator spotted a man acting suspiciously and called it in.
Good evening, my dear. You able to have a note here, this lad who's currently got him on camera. He's looking at all the bikes. Keep an eye on him, see where he heads to.
PC Farrar was in his police car when he was alerted by the control room.
There's a police car right in front of him now.
So I stopped my vehicle immediately in front of him, got out of the car, approached him and said, "Right, get off the bike, I need to speak to you." Started searching him.
But the man was determined not to be searched.
He made a lunge forwards to try and make his escape, and I thought, you know, you're not going anywhere, mate, I'm going to keep hold of you.
As PC Farrar desperately fought the suspect, a concealed 12-inch knife fell out of his trousers onto the pavement.
There's only one reason why somebody would want to carry a knife of 12 inches on them, and that is to cause serious injury or death.
The man made yet another bid to escape, this time into the busy road. PC Farrar narrowly missed the oncoming traffic. He needed urgent backup, but struggled to reach his panic button.
Because the man was so violent, I was unable to get to my police panic alarm, my emergency button.
Any unit to Exhibition Square, please. 407 got him on the floor.
I was aware that the CCTV operator was relaying what was happening on his screen back to the police control room.
Any unit to Exhibition Square, please.
Before colleagues could arrive, a passing member of the public decided to weigh in. But Officer Farrar didn't know if he was friend or foe.
I wasn't sure if it was another offender I was going to have to contend with. Was I going to have to fight with 2 people on the floor? Am I going to get my head kicked in? But luckily, it was a professional martial arts expert. If you want someone to come and assist you in wrestling with a violent prisoner, you want a martial arts expert.
Yeah, 405's trying to get cuffs on him. There's a member of the public assisting.
With the martial arts expert's help, he detained the suspect until backup arrived.
Any unit sent to Exhibition Square, you can stand down now, thank you.
The man was jailed for 12 months for carrying a knife and resisting a police officer.
You're there to protect and serve the public. It's about making a difference. It's trying to make the country a safer place.
Coming up, the off-duty sergeant who comes face-to-face with road rage.
He didn't seem to believe I was a police officer, and if he did, he didn't care.
Fire's growing, yeah? Just get out.
And the cop who risked his life to save the residents of a burning building.
The rate that smoke was coming through from the basement flat, there'd be no time to wait for the fire brigade.
Being a police officer can be a highly stressful job. They work round the clock to maintain law and order. But even when they're off duty, sometimes cops have to step in if they see someone breaking the law.
As a police officer, you're never really off duty. If you see something happening in front of you or in a street near you, you would be expected to deal with it.
You are a police officer 24 hours a day. Most police officers will step in. But sometimes, of course, the consequences for that police officer can be very, very serious, and you can be far more vulnerable, in fact, to injury than when you're actually in uniform.
In Essex, when a knifeman threatened people in a shopping centre, he was confronted by an off-duty officer. Despite being without his police radio and body armour, he's seen talking to the man while shoppers escape. Taser-armed officers soon arrived to make an arrest.
If you have to step in, but you haven't got any backup, you haven't got any communications, you haven't got any sort of non-lethal deterrence, so, you know, if you have to step in, you have to know what you're getting into.
It's not just people that put our boys and girls in blue in danger. A specialist dog handler, PC Neil Dobson, knows only too well. He was busy conducting a house search when he was alerted to a potentially life or death situation.
It was during that search that I had a knock on the door from a member of the public who started screaming that his friend was trapped in a flat across the road and that it was on fire.
The fire had started in a fridge. As it took hold, Neil knew there was little time to waste to rescue the residents of the 4-storey building.
The rate that smoke was coming through from the basement flat into the ground floor communal area, there'd be no time to wait for the fire brigade. At 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, most people would have been asleep. So it was pretty much, let's go in and try and wake people up and get them out as quickly as possible.
Despite having no protective equipment, Neil and a colleague bravely entered the burning building to evacuate the people inside.
The fire's growing, yeah? Just get out.
We started knocking on the doors and shouting, police, police. It kind of sunk in that in certain areas, when you shout police, police and you run in, some people hide. So I had to think, I've just got to start shouting fire.
Police, police, fire up. No one in this one.
There wasn't time to knock on the door and ask people politely to get out of bed. It was a case of now I've got to kick every single door in and run into those flats and shout fire and get people out as quickly as possible. As I came downstairs, there was one door left to do and it just wouldn't budge.
Can't do that one. Go.
I looked down the stairs and the ground floor had already completely filled up, so I couldn't see the exit.
Go, I can't see.
Neil and his colleague managed to get all 7 residents out, but they still had to battle through the crippling smoke to escape themselves.
And that's when I caught a gasp of air of it straight down the lungs and started coughing. You don't realise how debilitating smoke is until you breathed it in. It affects you straight away, and that's the time you realise I'm not taking any more of that in. I'm holding my breath and I can go as far as my breath will take me, and that's it.
Yeah, we need to get out. Go.
After finding their way out, minutes later, 4 fire engines arrived to put out the blaze.
You don't have time to think. You only have really time to act, and those sort of circumstances, you have to just get in there and get the job done.
No one in this one.
After the incident, it dawns on you, oh, I could have actually have killed myself going in there. It's a bit stupid, really.
Every day on Britain's streets, in the face of rising violence, police officers will continue to put themselves in danger to keep us all safe.